Hello, dear model flying enthusiasts. My name is Lucien Gerard and I live in Luxembourg, a very small country right between France, Germany, and Belgium. I am in model flying since the late 60s when I was about 8 or 9 when I started flying. Normally, like many of you, I would have done a number of shows this year, but due to the pandemic situation we are in now, we couldn't, as most of them have been cancelled. So I thought I would start maybe doing some video footage of what I'm doing. But as this is my first video, let me give you a quick shortcut of my background in turbine engines. I am in turbines since the mid-90s with a friend who had bought a JPX propane-driven engine. That's where it all started. I was fascinated by the turbine technology, but when it comes to planes, my preference is clearly prop-driven. So I started looking in the net for maybe a turboprop, but there was none available at the time. All I could find was a certain Mike Murphy belonging to a young company called Wren, and they were offering a set of drawings and a set of materials to build your own turboprop. So as this was what I was looking for, I ordered this set of drawings right away and started building my turboprop. After completing it in 2002, I took it to the Owen Whittle Trophy in Nordheim, Germany, where I met the Wren people for the first time. And I showed it to them and they asked me if they could put it on display on their stand, which I was proud, in fact, to accept right away. After the show, we wanted to run it, and it was Mike Murphy, the developer of this engine himself, who made the first run of my turboprop. That was the start of a great friendship between Mike Murphy and myself, and since we have realized a number of challenging and unique projects together. I will probably do some video footage later about all these projects. After my engine had run successfully, I started building an Embraer Tucano around it, which had 2.7 meters wingspan and at the end weighed 14 kilos. So the first flight in public was then in 2003 at the Feu d'Alais show in France. Then came the very first jet power show in Bad Neuenahr in Germany, where we were able to show it and fly it, and there it was a real novelty and unique at its time worldwide. In spring of 2004, I went with a couple of friends to the Mallorca jet show along with my Tucano, and that was where I first met Gaspar Espiel, who has been in model jet engine development for many years already, as well together I think with people like Jesus Artes, Kurt Schreckling and others. Gaspar was also the first to develop and supply full authority digital control units called FADEC for model jet engines. For many years they were both running successfully their companies Xicoy and Wren, until about 2 years ago Mike decided to leave Wren and he joined the Xicoy company. And now, in my eyes, the two most experienced model jet engine developers are working together. So it was clear that something revolutionary was happening with these two guys working together. So their first development together was then this small X45 4.5 kilo thrust engine. It was initially intended to be a 3 kilo thrust engine, but yes, when those two had finished working on it, it had 4.5 kilos of thrust. So this tiny little engine is now the most powerful for its size and weight up to date, and it has a completely newly developed engine control, which I will explain a little later. With the great success of this engine right from the beginning, I was pleased to hear that Gaspar had decided to also develop a two-stage version of it, which might eventually become a heli engine or a turboprop. So that was of course what I wanted to hear. Now the heli engine is available for some time now, and besides its quick startup, very fast throttle response and very good overall behavior, it also has an RPM governor, which is new worldwide in fact. Right now they are working to finalize the turboprop, which is normally due maybe or probably before Christmas to be commercially available. And of course I am proud that Gaspar chose me to do the in-flight testing of this turboprop. I will of course do a video about it as soon as the testing will be complete and I have enough footage to show you what it's all about and how it can be installed. A few weeks ago I had the chance to visit the Xicoy factory, which is in Canet de Mar, which is in Catalonia, the northern part of Spain. It's a few kilometers north of Barcelona. We were there for holiday and of course I couldn't resist to have a visit in the company. We were doing some static thrust testing in the backyard of the factory with my dream flight PC-21, which is now distributed by ADJets in Luxembourg, which is a perfect fit for that size of turboprops. And we have also been out flying, of course, where Gaspar could see it perform in the air, and he already had posted a short video of it showing its enormous performance. And at the end of my visit I just couldn't resist to get one of the small thrust engines as well, with the idea to install it here on my good old Phoenix. I remember Gaspar saying, oh, that will not be powerful enough, but that's the kind of challenges I like and I really wanted to know if it will work or not. So here we are. So let me open the canopy and show you what it's all about. So what is new now about this engine is that all the different components have their own small microprocessor controlling each unit themselves. All the different components are connected together via a bus system exchanging data. It's not like before that you have the FADEC which controls the pump, which controls the solenoids and the starter motor, but here they communicate via this bus system. So the main controller, the FADEC, is in here. You have the two solenoid valves in here as well and the control of the starter motor, which is a brushless motor. So the RPM can be controlled exactly by the ECU. And then we have a 3-wire cable, which is the power supply and the bus connection. Right in the center we have this small hub, which is mainly to connect all the cables together, but it also has its own microcontroller, as I said before, and it is to control your input, which is a PWM signal and is converted to data which is sent via the bus to the main FADEC in the engine. And it also controls the power connection, the power switch, because you may switch off your receiver after your flight and the cooling will still go on, and the electronics in this hub will switch off the power once the ECU tells it that the cooling has finished and that the power can be shut down. So you have here the cable coming from the engine with 2 wires for power and 1 for the bus. Here you have a small servo patch cable going to the pump, which is sitting right underneath here. The pump is very small and it has its own control unit as well inside, which takes care to drive a brushless motor, and its connection to the FADEC is only via this hub with this bus system, and it's only data that is transferred between the pump and the FADEC. So the FADEC asks for a certain RPM of the pump, and as soon as the pump has reached this RPM, it replies to the FADEC, I have reached this RPM, what shall I do next? So by this system, the FADEC can take care of other things like the management of the engine instead of having to control the pump as well. It only sends the values it needs and will get a reply once this is reached, and it can then continue its program according to that. For the turboprop and for the heli engine, You also have an RPM pickup, which is in the heli to protect the engine from over revving in case the gear is broken or something like that. And it is for the governor, so it keeps the output RPM always constant to a setting which you can choose. So for this hub you have this small version which is called the Lite, and it comes together with this display which most of you will probably know, and it can be connected here to the data port. To this data port, of course, you can also connect the telemetry adapter, which then connects to your receiver for telemetry retrieval right to your transmitter. Telemetry data can also be recorded via this terminal. It has a slot here for a small SD card which you can put in, and then you leave it during the flight, and after the flight you can record the data it has recorded and you can replay it on the display. The other option for the hub is this compact hub, which has a 2-line LCD display integrated, where you can right here look at or set different parameters without having to have an external display. It has the same connections as the Lite version, and you can also connect your telemetry adapter to retrieve telemetry values real time onto your transmitter. On my Jetty transmitter, for example, I can display any of the values which are available from the telemetry module. So here is, for example, my first page with the battery values of the receiver, and here I have the engine battery, which is one of the values I get via the telemetry module. On my second page I have the turbine RPM and temperature, and I also have the remaining fuel capacity, which is now 100%. On my third page I have the engine display just as it would be on your ECU terminal or on the compact hub, for example, and it can be used with the buttons just as you would use it on the original display. So for instance, we can have a look at some settings here, or just do a starter test perhaps. So here the starter is running. We can stop it and go on in the values. So back to the initial display, I can switch on the engine. You will see it will turn to ready, and I can initiate a start and watching the values from here, for example. So this behaves exactly as the terminal on the FADEC itself. All the values can of course also be recorded, and you can retrieve them later from your radio. So this is about the most important things I wanted to tell about the engine itself and its components. You also have an optional feature which is called the restart in flight. So if you have bubbles or whatever in flight, it can restart automatically. And this restart is very, very fast, but there are safety issues that go with it. So everyone has to decide whether to use it or not. The best is, as always, RTFM first, and in the manual all the pros and cons are explained, and everyone must decide for himself if he's using it or not. In this plane I do not use it. I will probably, just for testing purposes, maybe switch it on, but by default when you get the engine it is switched off. So that's about all, and now it's time to go flying and see if at all it will lift it off the ground or how it will fly. So let's go to flight. See you on the field. back from flying. As you have seen, it's no problem with the power of this little engine. Even at not so recently mowed grass, it is absolutely no problem for takeoff, and flying is real fun with it. With a power to weight ratio of merely 0.5, it is absolutely no problem. So this was my first video, and many thanks to my son Sven, who did the filming and also cutting of this video. And I think I will do some more of the upcoming projects. So stay tuned, and if you like the video, you know what I mean. I've recently started a turboprop page on my Facebook site on turboprops and all the projects we have done so far, and probably future projects. It's not finished by far, but if you want to have a look, just click on the link right here in the corner. And yes, stay tuned, there is probably more to come. Thank you, and bye bye.